The Dien Bien Phu Campaign. The 36th Division moved up to the northwest. The 6th Colonial Parachute Battalion and 2 battalions of the 1st Parachute Regiment landed in Dien Bien Phu. The following day, 3 more parachute battalions were dropped. In just 2 days, France had deployed 5,100 paratroopers and 240 tons of weapons and equipment to the Muang Thon Basin, Long Chau/Long Chau, Dien Bien Phu. The parachute drop into Dien Bien Phu was codenamed Operation Castor, Beaver. General Navarre decided to abandon Lai Chau, using the forces to reinforce Dien Bien Phu. On December 7, 1953, Navarre appointed Colonel de Castries to command the Dien Bien Phu base and continued to reinforce the area, building solid defensive fortifications. Dien Bien Phu became a very large fortified base, Tap Don Cu Diem, in Vietnamese, often translated as Fortified Complex or Strongpoint Complex, with 8 centers of resistance divided into 3 subsectors. The central subsector was located in the middle of the Muang Thon Plain with 5 centers of resistance surrounding de Castries' command bunker. The northern subsector consisted of 2 centers of resistance. The southern subsector had 1 center of resistance. Enemy artillery was positioned in Muang Thon and Hong Kum. A tank company was deployed in the central and southern subsectors. U.S. Vice President Richard Nixon came to personally inspect the construction of the fortified complex. Many French and American generals who visited the garrison troops at Dien Bien Phu called it a veritable fortress in Asia, and a very strong form of defense. Colonel de Castries declared that the purpose of Dien Bien Phu was to crush the insane will of the Viet Minh. However, with the eye of a general who had faced the French Expeditionary Corps for 8 years, General Giap observed that, regardless of how the enemy situation changes, the enemy dropping paratroopers into Dien Bien Phu is fundamentally advantageous to us. The Viet Minh Strategy. Regarding the Dien Bien Phu province, Colonel de Castries was studying the situation when, on December 6, 1953, President Ho Chi Minh chaired a Politburo meeting on the plan to attack Dien Bien Phu. The conference concluded that Dien Bien Phu would be a strong fortified complex, but its fundamental weakness was that it was isolated. All reinforcements and supplies had to rely on the air route. The Politburo decided to open the Dien Bien Phu campaign under the code name Tran Dinh. They established the Front Party Committee and appointed Comrade Vo Nguyen Giap as the campaign commander and the committee's secretary. Before General Giap set off for the campaign, President Ho Chi Minh told him, "The general is in the field, I give you full authority to decide. If you are certain of victory, fight. If not, resolutely do not fight." The northwestern mountains and forests began to move. Convoys of laborers carrying loads, pushing modified bicycles, and stretching endlessly up to Dien Bien Phu. The troops strained to pull artillery up the passes. The De River, raging and fierce, could not stop the heroic units from crossing the swift rapids. The entire nation marched to the northwest. Comparison of forces. The troop strength in the Dien Bien Phu campaign. Viet Minh forces, Ta approximately 55,000 personnel, comprising 5 major divisions, the 304th, 308th, 312th, 316th, and 351st. Equipment included DKZ 75mm and 82mm mortars, for companies of 120mm mortars, 24 units of 75mm mountain guns, 24 units of 105mm howitzers, 76 units of 37mm anti-aircraft guns, and 12 units of H-6 anti-aircraft guns, Hoa Tien H-6 715GV, which refers to rockets. French forces, Dike approximately 16,200 troops at Dien Bien Phu, including 16 battalions and 9 infantry companies, 1 engineer battalion, 20 units of 120mm mortars, 28 units of 105mm artillery, 4 units of 155mm artillery, 10 US M24 Chaffee tanks, 200 transport vehicles, 14 airplanes, 7 fighter bombers, 6 reconnaissance/liaison aircraft, and 1 helicopter. Tam Pua Cave, Truong Sin Commune, Tuan Giao District, was the place General Vong Nguyen Giap and the Dien Bien Phu Campaign High Command chose as their main headquarters from December 17, 1953, to January 17, 1954. Here, the battle plan was announced on a large, sand table model. High-ranking cadres such as Generals Vang Thua Vu, Le Trong Tan, Le Quang Ba, Dao Van Truong, Nam Long, Chu Hui Man, Pham Ngoc Ngao, along with many divisional and regimental level officers, attended. Changing the strategy, from quick fight, quick victory, to steady fight, steady advance. The initial operational plan was Dan Enhan Tang Enhan, quick fight, quick victory. The 308th Division was to attack the western part of the complex, penetrating the positions on the plain and heading straight for General de Castries' command post. The 312th and 316th Divisions were tasked with attacking from the east, where the enemy's key high ground positions were located. The battle was expected to last 2 days and 3 nights. The scheduled date to open fire was 5 p.m. on January 25, 1954. However, close to that date, a Vietnamese soldier was captured. General Vong Nguyen Giap decided to postpone the attack by 24 hours. Analyzing the actual situation, General Giap realized that half a month had passed since the combat mission was announced at Tam Pua Cave. The French troops at Dien Bien Phu were no longer in a temporary defensive state, they had built a solid fortified complex with maximum air and artillery support. On the Viet Minh side, there were many difficulties when attacking a fortified complex with interconnected defenses. This was the first time there would be a large-scale coordinated effort between infantry and artillery. Furthermore, the troops lacked experience operating in the daytime on open terrain against an enemy with superior air power, artillery, and tanks. On January 26, 1954, a meeting of the Front Party Committee took place in a frank atmosphere, raising the proposal to switch the operating motto from quick fight, quick victory to Dan Chek, Tien Chek, steady fight, steady advance, or fight surely and advance surely. Many opinions were divided on the two plans. Based on the actual battlefield situation, the general made a historic decision: our determination is to wipe out the entire enemy garrison, but the situation has changed, so the plan must change. Withdraw the artillery to the assembly areas. Move to the new location. This begins at 5 p.m. this afternoon. The order must be strictly obeyed, without explanation. Unable to use the radio, the general wrote an urgent letter to report to the Politburo. A few days later, he received a letter from General Secretary Truong Chin, reporting that Uncle Ho and the Politburo consider the decision to change the strategic guideline to be completely correct. Logistics and supply. To ensure logistical support for the Dien Bien Phu campaign, under the guidance of the Central Party Committee, for the first time in the nation's history, the entire population went to the front. Youth volunteers, frontline civilian workers, old, young, women, and men from many localities, transported a colossal amount of food, supplies, medicine, ammunition, and weapons up to Dien Bien Phu. French planes continuously bombed, but the supply route was never cut off. The poet to Hugh's verses, Doc Fa Din, Chi Dan on Tho / Deo Lung Lo, on Ho Chi Hot / De Boem Dan Swang Tan Thit Nat / Kong Sun Long, Kong Teek Tu Oi Zan, Fa Din Pass, she carries the load, he shoulders it / Lung Lo Pass, he cheers, she sings / though bombs and bullets dissolve flesh and bones / their spirit is undaunted, they regret not their youth, capture the fighting spirit of the frontline civilian workers. The Viet Minh mobilized over 260,000 people with 3 million workdays, 21,000 modified bicycles, 12,000 rafts, and 500 pack horses to transport 25,000 tons of rice, 900 tons of meat, and 917 tons of other foodstuffs. To support the 4 infantry divisions and 1 artillery division, they mobilized 1,783 tons of fuel, 55 tons of medicine, over 3 million rounds of ammunition, 96,000 grenades, and 27.5 tons of explosives. The engineering forces built 89 kilometers of new roads and repaired 500 kilometers of existing roads. For the Dien Bien Phu campaign, the Soviet Union provided 1 unit of 37 mm anti-aircraft artillery, modern H-6 rocket launchers, and 685 transport vehicles. China provided 1,700 tons of rice and one 105 mm artillery regiment. With the new combat guideline, units had to pull the artillery out, and then pull it back in to rearrange forces. The western and simultaneously most challenging sections involved overcoming the high slope of the Phu Pha Song mountain range, a long and extremely steep range. The slope was very large, ranging from 40 to 45 degrees, which they had to pull the artillery over. The beginning of the attack. Around February 1, 1954, a 37 mm anti-aircraft artillery squad belonging to Company 827, Battalion 394, Regiment 367, commanded by squad leader Dien, was pulling the gun out when it reached Dak Chui, Banana Slope, and was hit by enemy shellfire. The tow rope snapped. Dien bravely used his body to wedge the gun, preventing it from falling into the ravine, and he died a heroic death. After rearranging their forces, the Viet Minh occupied the high ground positions surrounding the Dien Bien Phu Basin. From here, all enemy strongpoints were within sight. Each artillery piece was protected in carefully concealed and camouflaged bunkers, precisely aimed at predetermined firing coordinates. Him Lam, Beatrice. This hill was located northeast of Route 41, 2.5 kilometers from the Muong Ton Center. The French stationed their elite force here, the 3rd Foreign Legion Battalion of the 13th Foreign Legion Half Brigade. General Giap initially chose Him Lam to open the campaign. However, later, it was decided that such a direct hit would scatter the artillery and require direct fire. Therefore, it was decided that the opening battle had to be an absolute success. Thus, on March 13, the attack on the Him Lam center of resistance began. At 5:05 p.m. on March 13, 1954, the strategic decisive battle between the Vietnamese army and the French expeditionary force at Dien Bien Phu commenced. 40 units of 75 mm artillery suddenly unleashed a firestorm onto Him Lam Hill, inflicting heavy damage on the French forces. This was beyond the imagination of the French artillery commander, Lieutenant Colonel Pierrot, who was also the deputy commander of the Dien Bien Phu fortified complex. Pierrot had promised on his honor that he would not allow any Viet Minh artillery piece to fire more than 3 rounds without being destroyed. Reality did not unfold this way. When requested by de Castries to immediately counter-fire, Pierrot fired 6,000 rounds of French artillery around Him Lam, but could not suppress the Viet Minh artillery. After the barrage, many machine gun nests and trenches were destroyed. Vietnamese troops advanced, placing satchel charges to assault the main breaches of the Him Lam strongpoint, wiping out the enemy in the trenches. The first soldiers to charge through the breaches were ready to face the greatest dangers. This was Lo Chow Mai, a machine gun nest/opening, where an enemy heavy machine gun blocked the main assault unit's path to the Him Lam strongpoint. Soldier Phan Din Giat bravely used his chest to block the gun opening and died a heroic death. In that instant, the troops charged forward to eliminate the enemy. The radio was destroyed, cutting off communication between Him Lam and Muong Ton. The 3rd Foreign Legion Battalion, with nearly 500 French soldiers, was wiped out. By 10:30 p.m. on March 13, the Him Lam strongpoint was completely destroyed. On March 15, 1954, the Viet Minh attacked Dak Lap, Gabriel, strongpoint. The battle was extremely fierce. Several French officers were killed or wounded. All 81 mm and 120 mm mortars were destroyed. General de Castries ordered a counterattack using 105 mm and 155 mm artillery. Tanks sent from Muong Ton to reinforce failed. After more than 3 hours, the Dak Lap strongpoint was captured. After failing to silence the Viet Minh artillery for 2 nights, Lieutenant Colonel Pierrot committed suicide with a grenade. At Ban Kio, Anne-Marie, after Him Lam and Dak Lap fell, the 36th Regiment of the 308th Division successfully persuaded the Thai soldiers there to surrender. Ban Kio was liberated without a single shot being fired. The 36th Regiment captured the hills, controlling the north and the Muong Ton airfield. The second phase, siege warfare. Entering the second phase of the campaign, the Viet Minh proceeded to divide the enemy at Dien Bien Phu using a system of trenches. The plan was for the units to dig 100 kilometers of trenches and build combat positions along the system of trenches, dividing the hedgehog of Dien Bien Phu. A main trench line encircled the entire enemy central subsector. Branch trenches cut across the main line from the forest, advancing to eliminate enemy positions. A captured French officer stated, "The trenches instantly surrounded us, encircling us in a basin." Their main objective was to cut off the supply route, and we were in a critical state. The Viet Minh's strength lies in their ingenuity, patience, and persistence in the work of digging siege trenches. This was a psychological attack, and we had to face it daily. The enemy realized the danger of the trenches. They used direct fire weapons to eliminate the Viet Minh trench digging forces. The soldiers came up with the idea of rolling large bundles of straw as camouflage while digging communication trenches and avoiding the enemy's direct fire. The French had no solution to deal with the trenches that were tightening their grip daily. A French commander remarked, "I believe that the Viet Minh's use of trench warfare in this battle was a genuine surprise to the French army, and it seems the French had forgotten this form of warfare." Tactically, the trench system was effective, helping the Viet Minh army approach and dismantle the Dien Bien Phu complex step by step. After every night, communication trenches from all directions tightened like a noose around the enemy's neck. Through this system of offensive and siege positions, the Viet Minh forces tightly contained and divided the interconnected defenses, destroyed the enemy's air supply bridge, and broke the fundamental structure of the Dien Bien Phu fortified complex. From the end of March, the movement to Sante Ban Tia, sniper hunting, was strongly launched, continuously attacking both day and night with various forms such as raids, sniping, and seizing supply parachutes. This depleted a portion of the enemy forces and caused many others to be fearful, exhausted, and living hidden in bunkers. The Viet Minh's 37mm anti-aircraft artillery effectively controlled the airspace over the Muong Ton airfield area, preventing French planes from landing. They had to drop supplies by parachute from altitudes of 2,000, 3,000 m and accept that over half of them fell into the hands of the opposing forces. The final assault. In the third phase of the campaign, all attention on the front focused on Hill A1. Here, the French deployed strong firepower in concrete bunkers, and reinforced the bomb shelters with tanks, paratroopers, and support from the central area. Approximately 2 battalions on Hill A1 controlled the entire Muong Ton center. The 174th Regiment, 316th Division, was assigned the task of assaulting Hill A1. The battle was extremely fierce. To destroy the A1 strongpoint, the Viet Minh decided to dig a tunnel from their position to right beside the enemy's central underground bunker, and then use a 1,000 kilograms block of explosives to collapse the bunker. The task of digging the tunnel was assigned to Comrade Nguyen Phu Shuyen Kung, a leading engineering platoon leader. By the end of April 1954, all preparations were complete. On the night of May 3, 1954, the campaign command decided on a general offensive across the entire front. The firing time was set for 8:30 p.m. on May 6, using the explosion of the 1,000 kilograms block of explosives on Hill A1 as the signal for the assault. The final victory. Precisely at 8:30 p.m. on May 6, the block of explosives detonated just a few dozen meters from the underground bunker, blowing up the pillbox on the hill and most of the French paratroop company, creating a crucial breach. The entire front began the general offensive. French troops on the hilltop and in the underground bunker came out to counterattack. The close-quarters fighting with submachine guns, grenades, and bayonets unfolded in every trench and bunker. In the southwest of Hill A1, the Viet Minh destroyed the Lo Got K to Cut pillbox of the chopped banyan tree, cutting off the enemy's supply route from Muong Ton. The troops gradually destroyed each enemy center of resistance. In the early morning of May 7, 1954, the Viet Minh gained control of the A1 strongpoint. The Dien Bien Phu fortified complex was completely shattered just over 12 hours after A1 fell. At 5:30 p.m. on the afternoon of May 7, 1954, the Quiet Chien Quiet Tang, determined to fight, determined to win, flag flew over the roof of the command bunker of the fortified complex. General de Castries and his command staff were captured alive. After 56 days and nights of carving mountains, sleeping in tunnels, enduring prolonged rain and cold rice rations, with blood mixing with the mud, the Dien Bien Phu campaign achieved complete victory. The Viet Minh killed and captured 16,200 enemy soldiers, seizing 28 artillery pieces, nearly 6,000 guns, 3 tanks, 64 cars, 43 tons of communication equipment, 20 tons of medical supplies, 40 tons of canned food, 40,000 liters of fuel, and shot down 62 aircraft. International impact. The Viet Minh's victory at Dien Bien Phu stunned and earned praise from the French and international press. The French archives still preserve many newspapers published in May 1954, such as Le Monde, Le Figaro, and other news agencies, writing about the Dien Bien Phu victory. All agreed that the French defeat at Dien Bien Phu signaled the end of colonialism in Indochina. The U.S. role in Dien Bien Phu was significant. By 1954, the U.S. had provided France with over 40,000 tons of weapons, including planes, ships, tanks, armored vehicles, and personal weapons. On March 22, President Eisenhower directed the establishment of an air bridge to supply Navarre at Dien Bien Phu. The U.S. had plans to bomb the Viet Minh supply lines, especially Tuan Giao, to force a withdrawal, but faced opposition from many congressmen. The U.S. even proposed dropping an atomic bomb on the Muong Ton Valley, however, the French forces refused. With the fall of Dien Bien Phu, France and the U.S. suffered a powerful blow in Indochina. One day after the victory, on May 8, 1954, President Ho Chi Minh sent a letter congratulating the cadres and soldiers participating in the Dien Bien Phu campaign. He wrote that the victory, though great, was only the first step. The Dien Bien Phu victory, renowned across the 5 continents and shaking the globe, ushered Vietnamese history into a new chapter, completely defeating France's efforts to re-establish colonial rule in Indochina, and ending more than 400 years of classical colonialism.